The Stirling engine was invented by Robert Stirling in 1816 as a way to rival the popular steam engine. While incredibly efficient, the Stirling engine was limited to applications that required a quiet and low-powered engine. Recently, inventors have been interested in the Stirling engine as a way to find more efficient power because in a Stirling engine, there are no explosions and all of the energy is confined within the system. All the engine requires is a temperature differential, one that could utilize any kind of heat source. This opens the Stirling engine up to solar power, a concept that attracts a lot of attention. The Stirling engine is powered by the Stirling cycle, one that uses heat and changes in pressure to turn a flywheel. In an alpha Stirling engine, the one I attempted to build, the first stage of the process involves the heating of the hot piston, which increases the pressure inside of the piston, pushing the piston out, which is turned into a force to spin the flywheel. As the flywheel turns, the heated piston pushes its air towards the cold piston. At this point, most of the air is being transferred away from the heat, and it's cooled by its surroundings. The cooling of the air, coupled with the momentum of the flywheel, decrease the volume in the cold piston, pulling the piston in and adding another force to keep the flywheel spinning. This step also sends the cooled air out to the hot piston to be heated once again. This cycle can take place many times a second, depending on the efficiency of the engine and shape of the flywheel. When starting on my Stirling engine, I focused far too much on the pistons. I used a glass tube as the outside of the pistons, with a copper cap as the seal. This worked pretty well, but I did not know how important the piston rods and the flywheel were. The piston's rods need to be able to swivel easily as the flywheel moves and provide as little resistance to the motion of the piston as possible. Mine did not swivel very much, and the piston rod would rub the copper cover of the tube. Additionally, my flywheel was nowhere near the right size or the weight to run the engine. The flywheel is very essential to the engine, as it uses its momentum to continue the Stirling cycle. If the moment of inertia is too low, it cannot complete the cycle. If it's too high, the engine is way too weak to rotate the flywheel. After a terrible attempt at my first Stirling engine, I did much more research on the best way to build an engine without spending too much more money. I saw many videos of Stirling engines using glass syringes as pistons with a cork connecting the piston to a hinge. The hinges were typically spring-like, allowing a piston rod to move up and down freely with the flywheel. I decided to try out making a Stirling engine like this. I mean, how hard could it be? The answer was really, really hard. I made sure my stroke length was correct. There were bearings for my flywheel to turn freely on, and a seal to connect the two pistons. The pistons worked great. There were no leaks in the system, and the rods moved at the right time relative to each other. However, the flywheel was too small, so I tried a larger one, but to no avail. I could tell I was getting closer to a working engine, but was still a long way off. Looking at other Stirling engines online, I saw machined metal designed for their Stirling engines. I was using materials I could find at a local hardware store and trying to make everything myself. What I noticed was, I lacked the materials and guidance to build a working engine. With the amount of money spent on parts that didn't work, I could have simply bought a decent engine. My advice to those who would like to try their hand at this would be to make sure you know what you're getting into and have a solid plan to carry it out. Have someone who knows a little bit about machining metal or Stirling engines to push you in the right direction. Also, do plenty of research. Find a flywheel with the right moment of inertia for an engine with your specifications. Make sure that there is minimal friction and a large enough temperature differential for you. I will continue to work on these things until I have something that can convert heat into motion.